Hello and welcome to Tink or Swim. My name is Jennifer. I'm a knitter and crocheter based in Southern California, where I live with my husband and our two cats. This is episode 4, and this is where I chat, or rather ramble, about all the projects that I've either recently finished, I'm currently working on, or things that I'm planning to work on in the near future. Towards the end, I will do a little catch up about what I've been up to, particularly things that I've been watching or listening to while I'm crafting, in case you're looking for similar recommendations. And yeah, anything else that comes to mind. Warning ahead, foul language may or may not slip out occasionally, not of the bird variety. I have a bit of dark and dry humor. And occasionally bad puns, see the aforementioned. And if I mispronounce anything, please let me know. I do want to learn how to say things properly, especially with such a varied, collection of pattern names, designer names, yarn labels, and fiber names, and anything. Feel free to just let me know. And if I can properly pronounce it, I absolutely will. And finally, if there is anything that I mentioned here, I will link it in the description so that in the event that you're looking for the pattern that I'm talking about or the yarn that I'm mentioning, if it's available, I will link everything in the description, as well as things that I'm watching or listening to. All right. With that out of the way, today is November the 8th. It is a Saturday. And the sun is doing what it does. I wore a knitted garment earlier today. Oh, I do have to tell you what I'm wearing. I don't have to, but I will. I wore my last finished nocturnal jumper from the previous episode to go run errands earlier today. And unfortunately, Southern California is still doing what Southern California does, and it's a rather warm day. So I eventually had to just decide to not wear that when recording today. But what I am wearing is, this pattern is this is a tank top, vest, slip over, and the pattern also allows for a v-neck t-shirt construction. The name is Sophorine. The pattern designer is Audrey Borrego. She's a French pattern designer, so her patterns are available in English and French. So I'll just remove the rest of my cardigan and show you. I'm actually really happy with this. So I went for the v-neck tank top version. I do think it is only a v-neck. I don't think there's a rounded neck option. And what else? The pattern, I believe it is an inclusive pattern. If I misspeak, I apologize. It's free because Audrey Borrego no longer does, how is the correct term, like professional pattern designing. Like she doesn't do paid patterns anymore. So she actually ended up taking all of her patterns that were independently published and made them free. So she's actually one of my favorite knitwear and accessory designers at present. So you might see a lot more from her in the coming however long it'll take me to get started on my next projects and show them. What else about the project? Oh yes, there are options. It is for a fit for people with potentially larger chests. There's something called bust darts, and if you're not familiar with the term, it's essentially a way for you to add additional fabric in the bust area to accommodate so that the top can drape properly, because bodies are not shaped like rectangles, or like rectangular prisms, more correctly, I guess. And so there needs to be certain accommodations, the same reasons that you do short row shaping or along the back neckline for garments, so that it can accommodate the extra curvature of the natural body and the back, and fall more or less in line with the way that it would fall in the front. I knit a size I want to say I knit a size 3. Again, linking everything down below, including my project page on Ravelry. I somehow combined all 3 of those words into one. I think I knit a size 3. I think I also could have gotten away with a size 2, and definitely did not need to do bust darts. So there's a certain guide for there is a guide for bust darts about measuring or using your cup size if you're a person who wears bras, using your cup size to determine whether or not bust darts are needed. And actually, I just went ahead with them because I assumed that I would benefit from them. But I really don't think they're needed. And now that, so the small annoyance of mine when I look at this, like, I'm really happy with the final outcome of it. But I just think that it just wasn't necessary. And I think in a combination of that and the fiber that I chose, which I'll mention the yarn in a second, I do think there's a little bit of like stretching or excess space. So that doesn't stop me, though. I do actually wear this garment a lot. The yarn I used is Illimani Sabri in 2 colorways that I don't actually know off the top of my head. One might be Stovepipe, but I feel like that's a Lion brand colorway. But again, it's in my project page on Ravelry. I used about 1 and maybe 1/3 of a skein of the main color, the darker gray one, and the lighter gray one. I'll actually come closer to the camera. I don't know if you can see it. It actually kind of has a naturally marled effect. The light gray, the colorways have numerical systems in addition to, I think, names. And for the fully solid tonal, or I guess fully solid colors, it's just 1 number, but the light gray actually came with like 2 numbers. So it was 1 color, it was like 38/40 or something. So that to me says they mixed 2 colors to create the kind of this light gray marled effect. All that to say, the fabric itself, I think, is primarily cotton and baby alpaca. I think cotton is in a pretty high percentage, and the alpaca is just there enough for like this incredible soft texture, this airiness to it. And now that I mentioned the fibers, I do believe, as I'm learning, because this is, I'm only like 1.5 years, maybe almost 2 years of knitting experience, and I don't think a lot of that really was like fitted garment making. So I'm learning, cotton tends to grow, alpaca tends to grow. So put that together, and I could have done a size 2, in summary. All right, so that is what I am wearing. All that said, it's so soft. It's one of my favorite things to wear, and every time I put it on, I'm like, dang, this is awesome. Would love to make another one. The pattern was very pretty easy to follow, and again, it's free. But at the time of its publication, I assume it was paid, tech edited, and all that good stuff. So it is, a professional pattern. All right, cool. That's what I'm wearing. Finished objects. I have 2. One of them I can show you on camera. The other one is currently being worn by the recipient, and they're both gift knits. So as excited as I am, they are not for me, but that is perfectly fine, because the first, this is going out of order. So the first object that I'm going to show you was actually finished. Wait, that's not true. This one's finished first. Sorry, I have my husband in the corner. He's casting on a project for himself. This was finished first. Okay, so in my last episode, if you happen to watch it, if not, I'll summarize here. I said once my nocturnal jumper was done, I was going to go full force and focus on this being LYS. So LYS, the initials, I don't think she actually explicitly says it in the pattern description, but it could be little yellow sweater, because the sample is done, the original is done in a yellow yarn. but it's also the acronyms of local yarn store. Isn't that cute? But this is my little wisteria sweater because this is the colorway name of this yarn that I chose. The pattern designer is Andrea Mowry, also known as Drea Renee Knits. The object is a cropped cardigan. So it's supposed to be, I think the body should be roughly 8 inches tall. The way that, and the pattern is very detailed. I want to say around 11 pages long or so. It's got, the cardigan has a lace panel in the front with bobble stitches that are done with a crochet hook. So I learned to crochet first, so I was very comfortable with these crochet bobbles. I know that there are many knitters who do not crochet and or find the process of creating bobbles, whether using knitting needles only or a crochet hook, to be very cumbersome. I did have to watch her instructional video, which thank you to her for having an instructional video for this. Because I can do written instructions, but also, you know, I don't complain at having a visual guide. I did have to watch the instructional video probably 90% of the time whenever I came to these bobbles, because it's a 16 row repeat and it only happens on one row of the 16 rows. And I put this down and picked it back up many, many times to the point where I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's even a mistake in here that I can't even fully identify. I don't have the skill set to do that at present, or the desire to nitpick this too much anymore, that I might have repeated an extra row because I couldn't figure out which row I had left off on. Yeah, I have very strong feelings about this. I had called it, for example, the bane of my existence. On several occasions. This got me the closest to a meltdown that I think a knitting project has ever gotten me thus far. I did have to put it in timeout, even when coming back to it, because I took a break from it for almost a year, and then when I came back to it, all sorts of things happened. I mean, holy crap, this cardigan put me through it, and it's not the pattern designer's issue. Again, beautifully written pattern, so detailed. She is an excellent designer. The yarn is beautiful. It is West Yorkshire Spinners exquisite 4-ply. It is 70% Falkland wool and 30% silk. One of the reasons I got it in the first place was because of shiny object syndrome, or in this case, ooh, it's soft, I want it. I have a tendency to gravitate when I'm at the local yarn store to things with silk blends and alpaca blends, because that's just that kind of showstopper for me when I'm like squishing all the yarns, and then I feel that softness, or the halo of alpaca or silk or something, but I feel like but yeah, anyway, so working with the yarn itself, as a beginner, because when I cast this on, I had never done, this is my first cardigan ever. What else? I decided to also teach myself 2 at a time with sleeves for some reason, even though I had never done socks before. There was a miscounting mishap that I found out 1.5 years later and had to frog and redo the sleeves. Oh boy. I had learned that I was purling wrong halfway through the ribbing, I think, because this was like my 3rd, 4th knitting project ever. And then I was like, wow, I don't think I'm purling correctly. Let me just change it up. Gauge issues abound. Rowing out, which is, if you're unfamiliar with the term, because I learned it like a month ago, is when, due to tension differences, for example, right here, some of your rows may look a little bit more extended or loose, or just kind of more like obvious, I suppose. It doesn't make a perfectly flat fabric. Yeah, all the time that I spent with this, and all the tears and frustration, and the times that I muttered to myself, I'm just gonna stop and my best friend is just going to get a shawl from me for her birthday 2 years late, and that's just going to be that. I'm very happy in the end. I am the same size as her, so chances are, if I haven't already, I'm going to be inserting videos of me trying it on. It's not my style, so if I look uncomfortable in the videos, that is why. It's not my style, it's not my preferred, and it's also not for me, so I'm like trying really hard not to like exist in it for too long, which is also why I'm not wearing it here. I keep showing this to the camera because I keep trying to physically remind myself to talk about these freaking buttons, which are beautiful. I love these buttons so much. They are, I hope, or at least according to the Etsy, I think they're handmade. They are wooden buttons. They're dark blue. The background is dark blue, and they're engraved with the natural wood color staying out with these floral designs. They're 20 millimeter buttons. I think 20 millimeter. No, I think the quantity was 20 that I bought. They might be 15 millimeter, half-inch buttons. The pattern calls for you to put in buttonholes. It's an integrated button band. So I know that there are some button bands that I'm learning about that are done with something called double knitting, which I haven't gotten to yet. There are also button bands that are involved with cutting your knitting. But this is just done as a part of the regular row knitting experience. So it's knit flat, bottom up, but you start with the sleeves. So you do the sleeves first. You put the sleeves to the side when they're done, and then you start the main body of the cardigan. Spend 5,000 years doing a ribbing, and then knit flat for another 5,000 years. Until you finally join with the sleeves and begin these raglan decreases up at the top that create this sloped shoulder area, which again, counting is hard apparently. And I decreased too much, or the math was not mathing by the time that I got to the neck or the collar, like the neck shaping and the collar, which is why the top kind of might look funky to those with a more practiced eye. Obviously there are no buttons up here, and that is because, again, I think I was too eager and added some buttonholes too soon. Andrea Maury's math is immaculate, and like me stepping just one side off, I think, what is it called? It's snowballs. It's a snowball effect when it says to do every 1 point something amount of inches to do this, but then I'm like, okay, is this at that mark on the ruler or measuring tape? Maybe close enough. And also learning where to effectively count the zero. Like, I learned that you shouldn't count, or I guess it's not the correct practice to count the stitches that are on the actual needle or the cord in your measurement for things. So all sorts of things, lots of learning opportunities. Still happy with it in the end. I know the gift recipient is going to love it, whether or not she is able to wear it a lot. I know she's sensitive to wool, and so this is intended to be worn, of course, outside of as a layering piece. And hopefully the collar isn't too close to her neck. When I put it on, I can't button it up all the way because it will choke me out. And it itches it's very itchy for me on the neck. Excuse me. The yarn did block beautifully. I was really concerned about that. I was also adding on to the tally of frustrations in working with this. Maybe it was just this particular hank of yarn that I got, and maybe it's like the time that it took for me to officially like wind it up and use it, and maybe whatever reason it started to break when I was winding it for use. This is the final skein or hank of yarn that I was putting into the cardigan. And when I say this and I'm holding up 2 cakes of yarn, yes, it was one, and it turned into this weird snowball monstrosity because I was winding it and then it broke. So I had to pull that out and then start winding the rest of it, and then that broke 4 times. So, so I was just working my way up the snowman's body, really. The largest ball of yarn that I created went into the cardigan, and then the next largest started being integrated into the cardigan, and I'm left with the two smaller ones. Don't know what I'm going to do with them, but we'll see. I love the color. It is one of my loved colors. Whew. Final notes. The buttons, yes, the button count. So total 16 buttons as written in the pattern, and I doubled and triple checked and felt like I was insane that I didn't have enough buttons to reach the collar when Andrea Mowry in the sample is wearing it buttoned all the way up to the neck. And I looked at the picture, and finally I was like, okay, I don't see the number. I'm counting 16. I double counted, I doubled and triple checked the distance between the buttons. And I understand that I kind of undershot here and there, but I feel like this is a long way to go without buttons. And I've already stopped at 16. That's what the instructions say. There are 18 buttons on the one that she's wearing. And anybody else can tell me if I'm insane, I miscounted. I don't know what buttons actually look like in reality because clearly I'm not around them enough. I'm pretty sure she's wearing 18 in the photos. Up to the neck. So maybe 2 were added on at the collar. Clearly I didn't do that, and I don't know. I still have 4 buttons left. I'll talk to my best friend about it, but honestly, it sounds like she's just ready to have it. She's so excited, and she wasn't planning on buttoning it up all the way anyway. And I did see some that left it without buttons towards the top. So, LYS, Andrea Mowry, and West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite 4-ply. Done. You cannot believe how happy I am that that is done. I cast that on in February 2024. It is November 2025. Okay, on to the next finished object. Or objects, really. A pair of socks. Ghost on the Run socks by Jocelyn Fraser. I am now no longer allergic to editing videos, so hopefully there is some sort of image coming up on the screen. Unless my husband wants to suddenly kick his foot into frame to show the fact that he is currently wearing the socks that I made him. So one of those is happening. Oh, you are planning to?
Yeah.
All right. Well, while you do that, he's currently knitting, and we can't interrupt knitters. So Ghost on the Run socks by Jocelyn Fraser. There are 3 sizes. The maximum size goes up to a finished circumference of 8.5 inches. For those who do not knit socks, or for those who just don't know, generally speaking, with socks, you are looking at anywhere from 1 to 2 inches of negative ease, I think, that you would want. You want me to just... I thought you were just going to kick your foot up.
Oh, shit.
You good?
Yeah.
So here's a ghost on the run. This is going to be my video thumbnail.
Yeah?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. We can stop doing that now. Sidebar. I hate feet. Feet freak me out. I never would have known. What? It's true. You know this.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have thought that I would knit socks. But here I am, knitting socks, and also immediately thinking, because I went to my local yarn store today, I'm like, oh, I'm going to make socks with these yarn. What a turn of events, and what a character growth arc that knitting can put you through, right? Ghost on the Run socks, Jocelyn Fraser. It goes up to 8.5 inches of foot circumference. You want 1 to 2 inches of negative ease for a sock, which means that the finished circumference of the object should be that many inches less than your foot, or the, for full-on garments, if there's negative ease, and that's based on your chest measurement or whatever. So, So I guess I could have gotten away with the biggest size. his foot circumference is 10.5 inches, but he also has a massively high instep. So I like to err on the side of caution and and I chose to go with a different stitch count that is higher than what the pattern called for. So I started with 80 stitches, and also with color worker, tension tends to tighten. So I actually ended up sticking with 80 stitches throughout the entire sock. These are the second socks that I've ever made for him. So it's a very like personalized, custom fit kind of process. So we're still, at least I think we're still learning what stitch count is proper based off of my needles, my personal tension, and his preferred size. So I'm pretty sure it won't be the last pair of socks I make from him. I am taking a break from gift knitting right now because that was a lot in the past month, and I do feel like a little bit of quote unquote selfish knitting for now. But the yarn that I used was Cascade Heritage in black and snow. This is a lot that I have left over. Very standard, nice yarn to work with. Definitely kind of slippery. It's a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. The snow it almost has like a yellowish hue. I'm sorry, I can't say that without laughing. I'm like, the snow looks yellow. I'm sorry. But I mean, it obviously next to the black, it looks like a very standard white color. But as we know, all these like white, off-white, and things lean a certain color tone or warmth or coolness. So I would say it's a little bit of a warmer. That is the appropriate term. It's a warmer white. So those are done. What did I say? 80 stitches. I just chose a chart that went with it from the pattern. The pattern was easy to follow. Really fun. I like the way that the ghosts look. Like, they kind of look like Pac-Man ghosts, but they're fleeing in this way and that way. So there's a little bit more like motion or liveliness to the ghosts. As ironic as that is. Those are my 2 finished objects from the past 2 weeks. On to whips or works in progress. Selfish knitting indeed. I'm fighting the urge. I'm not really fighting the urge. I don't know if maybe you can relate if you are a fellow person who has multiple whips sometimes and you end up doing like a bunch finished, especially since starting this podcast. I feel like not like I'm putting the pressure on myself, but I guess it has increased my motivation to get things done within reason. Like, I'm also trying to make sure I rest, make sure the joint health is good and all that stuff. I got wrist braces because I have carpal tunnel and I wear compression gloves at night. It's a hot mess, but still, with a lot of things getting done, it's almost like the feeling at the end of a TV show. Like you watched a TV show for quite a while, especially with this cardigan. It was such a pain in the behind for so long, and then now it's done and it's ready to be given away. And I'm like, I celebrate the fact that it's off my needles, but also I'm like, dang, I've gotten so used to being annoyed by that for so long. It's like that weird emptiness feeling. So now I'm on the search for other things to be annoyed about, I guess. This isn't that. This first work in progress is really fun to make, is really fun to knit. This is the Stromboli. I guess it's just called Stromboli. This looks really small on camera, and that's because the cord is pretty short. And I know because I did a swatch, this will grow by at least like 25% and probably plus some, because my swatch grew by 25% in terms of stitch count per 4 inches. So under its own weight as well, because this is a knitting for olive pure silk. So it's 100% Bourette silk, which is ethically harvested silk, pulled from after silkworms have already left the cocoons. Trigger warning, grotesque and or like too many details about silk harvesting, but I learned through this that apparently traditionally, or in a lot of places, insert some sort of generalization here, but the difference between barrette silk and silk that isn't harvested after they leave the cocoons is like they're boiled alive to harvest the silk. So while they're like in the cocoons, which also, you know, obviously it kills some. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. Again, dark and dry humor. Obviously, and then which is kind of a waste in my mind. I feel like I don't know enough about the reproductive cycles of moths, silkworms to moth cycle, but I assume you would probably want them to live and produce more silkworms to keep the silk processing. But I'm on a journey. Hey, if you know more about it, let me know in the comments. I keep forgetting to say things like that. I hear a lot of YouTubers say things like that, like, let me know in the comments, if you know, and I just haven't gotten used to that way of recognizing that I'm technically interacting with somebody and not just talking at a camera and occasionally trying to make my husband laugh in the corner. Back to my whip. Told you I'm a rambler. Stromboli, the designer, is Caitlin Hunter. Let's see. Caitlin Hunter, also known as Boyland Knitworks. This is a lace top, so there will be, this is, you know, a layering piece. And I really like the lace pattern repeat. It's an 8-row repeat. It is knit from bottom up, and I have reached a point where I am now going to work on splitting the front and back. So I guess I knit in the round, I come up all the way to the top. I should know this, you know, theoretically read the whole pattern. I skimmed it and promptly forgot because I was working on 100 other things. But yeah, I'm going to be splitting. Apologies if you hear any crinkling. The husband is getting a snack. So I'm going to be splitting for the front and back. And I assume after the front and the back, because they will together form the area around the arm holes, you join the front and the back again, and then do the sleeves from there. So I may be speaking out of turn, but hey, that is my understanding of how some garments are made. The yarn is I learned the term pebbly recently, and I think that is a perfect way to call it. It doesn't have the, like, as much of the sheen and shimmer as non-barrette silk does, I think. But it does still have a certain sheen to it. This is the ball of yarn. The color correction on this seems to be very strong, but it may be just my monitor. But the pebbly texture makes it kind of hard for the yarn to slide across the needles, which would normally, I feel like it would be easier if I were making this on metal needles for them to slide better. So I am thinking about switching to metal needles. They're currently on bamboo ones. And they make me a little nervous because sometimes with the weight, because silk is I guess more dense. I want to say heavy, but I'm like, I guess it's relative, depends on the actual weight of the thing. But there's like a creaking whenever I work through it, so it makes me nervous, like, is this gonna snap one day? And it doesn't even have that much shirt on it. So far I've used 1.5. This is about a half a ball. I bought a total of 5 to make the garment, and I'm only 1.5 through. So I'm very curious to know about what's gonna happen with how much yarn I have left. And that may be because, like, I bought enough based on the pattern. I mean, did the math, did my measurements, And when I did my gauge swatch, because the yarn grew that much, I decided to size down. I think I went all the way to a size 1, knowing how much it's going to grow, and anticipating that. I seem to be at a hit or miss rotation with assuming certain types of fits. When I first started making garments, I was under the assumption that I would prefer a negative ease garment every time and never a positive ease garment. So my first color work garment, which was also a Caitlin Hunter design, I decided to do my regular size, but also just not really care that my gauge swatch was showing me a tighter stitch count. And as a result, because of the tighter floats as my first color work garment, it's a little bit tight on the shoulders. Conversely, there have been times where I have done my best to respect a positive ease recommendation, and it ends up being a little bit loose on me. So this is a good example. I did bust darts because I was worried, oh no, is it going to be too tight? And then I had the armhole shaping, and I thought I did okay with it. And now I realize, there's a little bit of growth happening there, just by nature of fibers. So it kind of feels like a little bit of a gamble, even when, this is just my interpretation as arguably a beginner, or as inexperienced as I am, and with the fact that I keep working with different fibers all over the place. So it's constantly a guessing game for me. So all that to say, I don't know how much the final garment is going to grow, because it's not that comparable to the swatch. Like, you kind of get a gauge on how the fiber behaves, but when it starts to sit on the shoulders and the way that your shoulders are shaped, does that change things? And when it's resting on certain parts of the body versus like swinging freely at the base, like, does that cause certain stitches to stretch out more than others? These are things that I'm very curious about, and yes, I Google it sometimes, but there's nothing quite like firsthand experience and learning, which, again, I'm going into this, I try to go into all of my garment knits with an open mind, cautious optimism, hoping for the best, and a whole lot of, well, this is fine. And yeah, everything is a learning experience. I have no illusions that I know exactly what's going to happen. So wish me luck on that. I was having a lot of fun with the knitting in the round of the main body. Now that I'm splitting for the front and back, I'm going to have to be knitting flat, which is a little bit of a struggle for me when I'm knitting a chart, or I'm following a chart flat, because my brain doesn't seem to want to accept that I'm going to be reading this same chart but swapping knits and purls. So we'll see how that goes. I've done it before, and I've done it before on a shawl that I'm currently making, and what I ended up doing was just doing the written portion because it had both. But for this, I'll be trying again to do better with chart reading, or that dichotomy of that same chart being really two representations. That is the Stromboli. Next up, we have a new cast on. So in a previous episode, maybe my very first one, I mentioned I was doing some sort of Franken jelly roll blanket. I unraveled that, or I frogged it because it wasn't. Why did I frog it? I actually frogged it because I started thinking I want to do a crochet thing. And K.F. Jones, who's the designer of the jelly roll blanket, also, she and her husband have a podcast called Bakery Bears. She announced that she was coming out with a crochet version of the jelly roll blanket, and it's actually been a minute since I've done a crochet project. My last one was the Apollo's Sunset, which I'll be doing actually a whole wrap-up of my 2025. So Apollo Sunset is over there. Actually can't remember. I think Apollo Sunset was my last one because there's this blanket on the couch. That's also crochet. I finished both of those this year. Um, so it's been a minute since I've done a crochet project, and when she said she was doing a crochet version of the jelly roll, I was like, oh, there it is. That's kind of all I wanted. I wanted something that could eat up yarn. Yarn from my stash that I had gotten in previous years when I was more excited than sensible and got. Not to say that these aren't beautiful yarns or nice yarns, but it's just I'm learning my yarn identity, my making personality, accepting it as it changes, but also just looking back and going, maybe these aren't things that I would get today. I'm gonna stand up and show it because it's a little bit of it's a long one. It's upside down too. So I started my first strip of the crochet jelly roll blanket. I'm actually starting to think that maybe I could have gotten away with a wider width. I will bring it closer to the camera now. There it goes. So the crochet jelly roll blanket. So for those who don't know, because I didn't know why it was called jelly roll, jelly roll is a quilting thing. And my very unprofessional and unlearned knowledge on that to pass on and play the telephone game with is that it's a roll of fabric that you incorporate somehow into your quilting. And they come like this. They come rolled up. Not unlike a jelly roll dessert, like the type of cake that is filled with some sort of filling and it's rolled like that, like a jelly roll. I think that's literally what it's called. Yeah, so the blanket is made up of a bunch of strips like this. I'm going, and you're holding fingering weight yarn. You can use anything that you really want. The pattern is really easy to follow. She uses UK terms and US terms. So there's a section for both, for each one separately. As is, or as written, or what she did was hold 2 fingering weight yarns double to create this fabric in what's called the linen stitch, the crochet linen stitch. I don't think any of this is really proprietary to the pattern, what I've currently mentioned, because the linen stitch is known, and I think she does mention it in her podcast, as she was experimenting with what to do with it. So a linen stitch is done, if you're not a crocheter, it's done with what's called a single crochet in US terms, a double crochet in UK terms, and then I guess if I say chain 1 and you have never crocheted and you don't know crochet terms, how can that make sense? You make a space. You stitch, make a space, and then on the alternating row, you stitch into the spaces you made, and then you make a space again, and it creates kind of this dense fabric, which I really like. I think linen stitch is one of my favorite ones. So I grabbed a bunch of this yarn that I got from Hobbii, Hobbii. I hope I said that correctly. They're an online store in Denmark, and at the early stage of my crochet and or knitting journey, I got their rainbow Hobbii rainbow cotton 8/4 color pack, which was at the time it was 10 different balls of yarn, very bright, very colorful colors. One of these is not that. Oh, there it is. This is a different type of yarn. So these have been sitting in my stash. I've put them in different projects over time, but they're still here. I still have a good amount left. So that's been my motivating factor for creating some sort of scrap or all-encompassing project that I could just put them together in, because they don't they simply do not match the color theme or the my preferred more muted jewel tones or earthy tones, or did I say moody tones as well? They're very bright, borderline neon in some places, and really cute if I were to do things like amigurumi, like stuffed toys. But I found that I don't enjoy making those that much most of the time. Sometimes I get a feeling to make one or two, but they kind of hurt my hands and I get lost in the counting because it's, yeah, it can be mind numbing sometimes, in my opinion, for me. So yeah, so I held together two of the colors, and then I decided to do this thing where I take the two individual colors that I did and I'm doing solid passes of each one to create the full strip. And I will change the position of the marled, the mixed one, on the next strip. So you knit all the, or you crochet all these strips, and then you, I believe the pattern has you join as you go. So you'll start the next strip, and then you'll connect it as you go up. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that all the way because cotton fabric tends to be a little bit more dense, and therefore heavy and therefore harder on the hands when I'm like holding everything together. I don't know. This is kind of like my Wild West anything goes kind of project where I just let it go. I just vibe with it and see what the deal is. Cause I was working on this in the middle of during my D&D session. And while I was working on it, I was like, you know what? Not a big fan of really bright pink and I'm tired of looking at it. I'm just going to switch to the peachy color. So I realized, hey, I can do that. I'm the boss of my own crochet. Like, let's go. All right, so that's fun. That's my new cast on, and that is it for the works in progress that I've actively been working on these past 2 weeks. All right. I have no more official whips, but just a couple of things that I'm planning to do. Just things that are on my mind and I'm speaking them potentially into existence now, manifesting them more or less. I have a very short queue in Ravelry, and that's because I try not to queue things if I don't already have yarn for them. If I don't have yarn for them and I really intend to make them one day, I have a separate Ravelry bundle for those that I think I called it will make, comma, need yarn. So those are my little excuses for when I go to a yarn store or something and I'm looking at really nice yarn and I can kind of match them to a project that I already have in my mind that isn't in my queue. In my queue would be everything that I already have yarn for. So the one that I'm most excited about is also something that I decided to break my working only out of stash pattern or goal, or promise to myself, because that always happens. I wanted to celebrate finishing that cardigan. So I told myself when I'm done with the cardigan, I can make a selfish knit and I can make it as complicated or as simple as I want, just something that I see and it makes me really excited to give it a shot. I was also motivated by, I don't think she knits or crochets. I think she's a historical I want to say fashion historian. I'm sure she has an official title, and I do apologize if I am just botching it right now. Bernadette Banner is her name. And she's got her own YouTube channel, and it's very interesting to watch. She recreates like these historical pieces or tries out these historical methods. And by historical, I mean like Victorian, maybe Edwardian, not just vintage. But she published an Instagram reel a month and a half ago or so where she had made, I think it was a skirt, and there was a story behind it saying that she had fallen in love with this fabric. And maybe a lot of knitters can relate when I tell you that she goes on to state that she put the fabric away. She was, it was love at first sight. She put it away for quote unquote a special project someday in the future. It's a not right now kind of thing. So she got this fabric, put it in her stash. And I guess time passed and it's no longer the style that she usually goes for. So she was kind of lamenting that feeling that of this cycle that a lot of makers do, where we get these materials that we are so excited about and they make us happy now, but for whatever guilt that we put on ourselves for some reason, we decide that we're just not going to use it right now, or we'll give ourselves like a carrot on a stick to work towards, and then eventually maybe it doesn't make us feel as happy as it used to. And so that has actually impacted me a lot with the things that I'm choosing to make, because it has kind of made me reflect on just trying to have fun and do what I enjoy and put down what I don't want to work on, while also committing to finishing the projects that I do have too, because for me it's also a source of stress. Like, if I'm not going to finish it, I'd rather rip it out versus having it sit forever, which is what I'll get into that when I'm eventually going to do a 2025 roundup video, I think I mentioned before. So a lot of that has already been in rotation in my mind. Anyway, so at the end of this cardigan, I said, you know what? I'm going to, and I saw the pattern first. And I made that decision then. When I'm done with the pattern, or with the cardigan, and I know it'll happen soon, I'm going to cast on this sweater that I just saw, because I love it so much. And I'm going to get yarn for it right away, which I did. So I'm going to hold up. It's a little bit hard to show because a lot of it is connected to stuff right now. So I picked up some cone yarn. This is my first time working with cone yarn ever. And if you are a stranger to cone yarn, like I still am, cone yarn typically, from what I understand, and anybody please correct me in the comments if you are a cone yarn aficionado. Cone yarn is essentially spun onto cones, of course. But on top of that, I guess there's something to do with, like, they were developed for weaving primarily initially, or this is like the processing stage before it gets wound up into yarn balls or hanks or skeins. With that, they have spinning oils on them, which create a more compact structure onto the cone. As a result, when you wash cone yarn, there's a lot of, this is where like the blooming magic happens, and all those like dramatic pre and post block things that you can see out in the wild. I think this is almost a guarantee of such a stark contrast between what you're working with versus what the final product will look like. So this is my first experience with cone yarn. I got enough to make the Ghali sweater by, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I tried to look it up, and I also heard, I think Hobie interviewed her. I've heard Zanet or Janet, and I've also heard Zanete, Zanete, knits, is what she goes by. I love her designs. She's been in my radar for a long time, but relatively a long time, in my short history of knitting. And she has these beautiful color work pieces. And she came out with the Ghali sweater, which is this overall color work sport weight sweater with this chart that is over 130 rows. For those who don't do color work charts or color work at all, when I tell you, these things are like 8-row pattern repeats or 20-row pattern repeats, that's a lot. That's a big chunk of change to work off of, because usually with my experience so far and the patterns that I've chosen things that can be mostly memorized or easily conducive to some sort of rhythm at some point. Even these mittens that I've made, these are the spring-bound mittens. The bird motif, or the bird painting, really is unique in the sense that there's no real rhythm here, but on the back side of it, it is a lot more rhythmic, or the palm side of it is a lot more rhythmic. And even then, this is not 130 rows, and this was challenging for me. So I don't care. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna do my best. This is also. Let me try to hold this up.
You know?
No, I think I'm fine. Thank you. So this is lurex. This is what that is. It's shiny thread, basically. And I've got one in each to match each color of the main thread that I'm holding, or main yarn that I'm holding. Originally, according to my math and trying to achieve a sport weight. So back to the cone yarn stuff. So the store that I bought it from, I bought it online from Good Yarn US, which is based in Oregon. The weights aren't necessarily classified kind of like the same way as yarn that you would pick up to knit a hat or something. I mean, yes, you can knit a hat with the same yarn. What I mean is post cone processing. Usually there's like a certain weight that it's already categorized as. But these, like, there was a whole, like, there's so much good information on this website, or this yarn store's site, where it'll tell you, if you're holding it single, it may amount to this weight roughly. If you're holding it double, or it's intended for multi-stranded knitting. So the idea is that you get the same color, you split it into a certain number of cones, and then you hold all those together to equate to a certain target diameter of yarn that you want to use. So I got enough to fit roughly what I was understanding the pattern would call for. I did a swatch. I started a swatch. You can see here. So the gauge is based off of the color work chart. So I immediately started swatching the color work chart. But the color work, the gauge, the designer's gauge is 26 stitches across for 4 inches. I was getting 14 by holding 2 of these plus the shiny yarn. So I was holding 3 strands per color. I'm not a stranger to holding yarns double, but triple plus color work, which equals 6 strands, and the way that you work off of cone yarn, you have to have it on like a space below you so that you can pull it off. It's a whole learning experience. So that was my gauge, and I was not anywhere near the ballpark. So I dropped it down to holding 1 strand of each main color plus the shiny stuff. And you can see a pattern, the motif emerging here, which I'm really excited about. This is just my swatch, but oh my goodness, it's so pretty. I don't know if you can see the shine on it. Oh my goodness, it's so pretty. So I'm so excited to do this. Yet my gauge has only moved up to like 18. I think the last I checked was like, I got it as tight as 21. I downsized on the needle too. So this is like a multi-swatch. I started with one and I was like, this isn't working out, and then I'm doing another one. And then you have to account for blocking. So again, the magic of cone yarn blocking. That means it's going to only get bigger. So long story short, not meeting gauge on this whatsoever. But you know what? I think I'm just going to size down. So this is going to be another one of those, I'm going on an adventure and we'll find out later if this was a terrible idea or not. So I'm going to finish that swatch though. I'm going to do at least 32 rows of the chart. I'm at 20-ish, 21, 22-ish. And I'm trying to stop working on it at night before bed because I need my brain power to read the chart. And I keep making mistakes. So we'll see how that goes. I'm taking my time with it, slowing down, trying not to rush on things. 'Tis the season to chill, right? All right, so that's one project that I have coming up. Another pattern that I have coming up, and I know I'm coming up to an hour on this recording now, so forget what I've been up to. But I also have the pattern for the Ribblesdale vest by Lily Kate France. I haven't made a vest yet, so again, this can arguably be called a vest, but I think a vest actually has buttons. So technically it would be my first vest. I already have yarn in my stash for the Ribblesdale vest, so that's going to be coming at some point in the near future. I told myself I wanted to give myself a break from color work after I finished all these socks and my Halloween knits. And of course, immediately I was drawn to the Ghali sweater, so I don't know, maybe this is my fate. But Ribblesdale vest would be theoretically my break from color work if I do the Ghali vest after that. Yeah, so those are the two main things in my near future. I do still have a couple of other whips that I didn't show today that I just haven't worked on since the last episode, so we don't know if those are going to be mixed into the rotation. Most likely they will, because we love a dopamine hit when we finish a project. So those are the things that I have finished, been working on, and plan to work on in the near future. I'm going to go ahead and stop this here. I think it is long enough. Thank you so much for tuning in. If it was your first time viewing, welcome. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming again. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe or give this video a like, and let me know your thoughts below about anything that I mentioned here. Obviously, you watched me struggle with a lot of things, so if you are a more advanced knitter and you have some guidance on something that I mentioned that might have made you cringe and go, no, reach through the screen and give her a good shake and teach her the correct way to do this or that. Or like, no, don't just size down, it's not going to work for your size. Feel free. Or if you're a brand new beginner knitter and you want to sympathize or commiserate with me about how crazy it is to learn a thing or two all the time, 24 hours a day, and information overload, and it's also amazing, then feel free to do that too. I also want to know what you're working on, so yeah, let me know. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.